Welcome back to Block TV. It's time for Bitcoin Brief, where we break down the top stories from the cryptosphere. And today we're delighted to be joined by one of the most prolific writers in the scene. From Bitcoin Magazine, we welcome Colin Harper, Associate Editor of Bitcoin Magazine. Colin, thanks for joining us.
Always happy to be here, Yonah. Thanks for having me.
First up, Iran's recent changes in crypto mining regulation have some miners running scared. What's the story here?
Yeah, so I think this is a great story. It was pitched to me by Iranian investor. And it's great for cutting through the noise and the veil of untruth, I think, that we often get when we try to cross not just language barriers, but also continental barriers when it comes to news. And, you know, Iran has been in the news a lot recently. Bitcoin is on the rise there in light of the United States sanctions against the country. It's had devastating bouts of flooding. We've seen a humanitarian initiative to accept cryptocurrencies to try to fund some, philanthropic societies and organizations that can't get funding because they can't access their international bank accounts. And the Iranian government, very restrictive in its own right, with a lot of civil liberties, is also not too friendly about cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, and Bitcoin mining. And what we've seen is that Bitcoin is legal in Iran, and they passed some legislation to clarify their cryptocurrency mining regulations. But the regulations themselves don't really do anything to protect miners. In fact, they make it more costly, and they kind of raise the barrier to entry for some of these miners. So we've seen them packing up and going to neighboring countries like Iraq. Some of them are going to Turkey. Some of them have been moving, to Europe, other parts of the Middle East and Africa. So, I think it's, again, just a good story to really kind of get to the truth of just how this government is treating cryptocurrency businesses, especially miners.
And now legacy peer-to-peer Bitcoin exchange, LocalBitcoins, has made some changes to their KYC requirements. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so they've started implementing some extremely heavy, some people will call restrictive KYC requirements. For trades up to 1,000 euro, you have to supply your name, email address, some other KYC, information. And for trades up to 20,000 euro, I think this is over the course of a year, I believe, you have to even go into greater detail than that for anti-money laundering and KYC requirements. This has kind of been a slow snowballing effect with LocalBitcoin. They started implementing some of these measures over the past year, and they've slowly been kind of, tightening the vice grip, so to say, over their KYC and over their AML policies. And this whole piece by one of my colleagues, Vlad Castillo, is basically looking into, LocalBitcoin has often branded itself as a decentralized exchange. And obviously with these KYC implementations and requirements, they can't really say that anymore. It's not a decentralized exchange in the same way that something like BISC or HODL is. And, I think this is the consequence of a centralized company. I mean, it's incorporated in, I believe, it's either Sweden or Finland. And, they're going to have to play by the rules of European regulators. So, if you want to transact in Bitcoin semi-anonymously and in a decentralized fashion, you might want to look elsewhere from now on.
Mm-hmm. And how were they able to get away with this for so long? I mean, has there been a lot of, or has there been accusations of a lot of criminal activity being run through their exchange?
LocalBitcoins is kind of the poster child for if someone's money laundering with Bitcoin, LocalBitcoin, especially in the early days, is probably where they went. Now, as for the volume of that money laundering and people trying to, maybe obscure drug money and things like that, I couldn't tell you. I don't have any numbers on that. I think Chain Analysis and a bunch of others have done some pretty good blockchain analysis on this front, and they say that the percentage and figure is actually quite minuscule. Not much Bitcoin is used for illicit activity, despite what some mainstream media reports might try to frame. But I think it is just, the reason they got away with it for so long, being able to provide these, semi-decentralized and anonymous Bitcoin trades, is that regulators just weren't really paying attention as much. They didn't take Bitcoin very seriously. I mean, they only took it seriously in the instances where, it was something like the Silk Road or actual, real dark web or money laundering activity going on. They weren't really paying attention to everyday Bitcoin purchases. But now I think they're starting to pay more attention. We've seen world governments over the past year wake up to the reality that Bitcoin's not going away. And I think that local Bitcoins buckling to regulators here is a pretty good testament to that.
Mm-hmm. I guess the Wild West days of Bitcoin and crypto are over. Well, OKCoin has made a large pledge to fund blockchain infrastructure. Now, who is getting that funding and why?
Yeah, so this has actually been extremely controversial, and there's a reason that I saved it for our last bit today. Because OKCoin, when I originally got this press release, the press release read OKCoin pledges $1,000 to developers for Bitcoin development. And I thought, oh, well, that's awesome, because there's a problem with free and open source software development, where per its name, free and open source, there's no central source of funding. Developers are often doing this on their free time as hobbyists or as volunteers. And largely, barring certain Bitcoin incubation companies like Blockstream, that's how a lot of the development in Bitcoin still goes on today, even 10 years later. When I finally got the PR in full, I realized that not only were they deciding to pledge Bitcoin to Bitcoin core developers and Bitcoin knots and all the other implementations for the Bitcoin, the real Bitcoin, they were also pledging money to Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin Cash SV. And a lot of people didn't like that. They refused to vote in this initiative because of it. And that's another misconception I want to clear up for people is OKCoin is not asking you to donate money. What they're asking for is for you to vote through your OKCoin account for which project you'd like to see funded. At the end of the initiative, the funds will then be divided according to vote and then allocated towards the developers of the respective project. For Bitcoin, off the top of my head, it's Jimmy Song, Loop Dashir, and a few others, Fanquake, and a few others that are slipping my mind right now. But a lot of people had a lot of problem with this because, they say, just give it to Bitcoin. Don't give it to Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV. Don't give it to people who have tried to attack the Bitcoin chain before. And a lot of people, because of that, have refused to vote. And I don't necessarily blame them, but I think that's a shame because that's a vote towards Bitcoin that are just going to waste.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to mention, Colin, that at the beginning of your answer, you mentioned by accident $1,000 when I'm sure you meant 1,000 Bitcoin. I think that goes to show that in your mind, all money is now Bitcoin and they're all interchangeable. So it really goes to show how far ahead you've adopted Bitcoin. But going back to OKCoin, that's a lot. 1,000 Bitcoin is a lot to do. Are they doing this out of the goodness of their hearts? Are they doing it, as a kind of a PR move? What's their end game here?
So I think the PR move angle is exactly what this is. They are pledging up to $1,000. That is contingent on if they get, I think it's 50,000 votes because each vote is equal to 0.02 Bitcoin. I don't think they're going to get 50,000 votes. So they won't end up giving it's like 9 to 10 million. 10 million based on today's price is probably like 10.5 million. I don't think they'll end up giving all of that. And one of the things that I was really disappointed with, I don't have an OKCoin account, but I was going to set one up to do this. And, they asked for KYC, which is, of course, like you've got to do KYC because you have to be able to verify votes because you don't want to have sock puppet voting and multi-voting. But they also ask you to deposit 100 USD or 100 euro or some equivalent into your OKCoin account. And they also ask that you buy $100 worth of some asset on the platform. And that's where I kind of broke away from this and really started being a little more critical of the initiative. I'm not happy that they included Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin Cash SV, but they did, and I can't stop that, but I can vote. But now I'm not going to vote because I don't want to hold any funds on an exchange I'm never going to use. So part of it is for them to not just say, look at how good we are by, contributing to these open source projects and the developer community, but also part of it, in my opinion, is them to try to rope people onto the OKCoin platform, which again, if I had to just sign up on an OKCoin account and do KYC, that's fine. But I don't like that they're asking me to deposit money and buy on their exchange. I think that just kind of flies in the face of what they're trying to do here.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, Colin, now I know your views on OKCoin. I mean, listen, I was originally going to ask, listen, if you're okay with the KYC aspect, but not with the buying of coins, but I guess no pledge is free and no money is free, even if it's Bitcoin, to help good projects like the Bitcoin project, of course. Well, Colin, thank you so much for joining us and giving us the brief on the Bitcoin. And that was all for BLOCKTV. Make sure to check us back on all our social medias. I'm Yonah Hochhauser. Thanks for watching.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.